Hello everyone, Ron here from RJJ's Reactions, and I am back with Tim Minchin. Finally, it took a long break there from Tim, not for any particular reason, just because there were lots of suggestions and requests from other musicians and bands. Plus, I wanted to put in some that popped up on my Instagram, etc. So I just didn't get back to Tim for a while. So, Tim Minchin, this one is called Thank You God. I know he's a comedian. I know he sings. I know he plays piano really well. I saw him a long time ago, the first time I saw him, and didn't know who he was, and he looked like quite a character. And it was a talk show or a debate show, something like that. And he seemed to have sort of anti-established religion views. So, which that seems to be in line with me. We'll see about this one because it says "Thank you, God." So let's check it out and see what Tim has for us today. All right, it looks like we have a full orchestra here, and so I'm going to put myself up at the top and try to stay out of the way. Let's see what Tim has for us.
Sorry, I'm procrastinating. Look, there's just something I kind of need to address, and I should do it. I know I should do it now. That over the years, I've realized that a lot of my audience has come to my shows, particularly because of sometimes because I quite often sing about beliefs. Specifically, in the past, I've sung a lot about faith and religion, and if I'm completely honest with you, I've tended to mock some of the, not in general, but some of the more might perceived hypocrisies. But I just don't want anyone to be waiting for that because I'm not doing it anymore.
I don't think we can believe him. He's a comedian, and comedians like to play with their audiences. So I'm assuming that's what he's doing here. He's teasing. I'm sorry, the sound seems quite low. I've checked and it's turned right up. So it's just the video. Hopefully it comes through for you.
Well, I know it's. Look, I should. You've earned an explanation. You're right. Something happened to me. You see, when I was touring my last show in Australia. It was the beginning of last year, and I was doing a gig. Not one of my gigs. It was a sort of. It was actually a new material night, hosted by the Ross Noble. You know, the long-haired, mentally ill northerner, and he's not, he's not obviously. He's a genius, which is a mentally ill person with an audience. He's beautiful.
All right. I don't know Ross Noble. I think he's just teasing here. Maybe they. I hope they like each other or they're friends. I'm not sure. I don't know who Ross Noble is, but he's saying some facts here. The people who are called geniuses today, in the last few years anyway, are not all geniuses for sure. I was actually talking to one of my students the other day who called someone a genius. I said, don't insult that person. Don't call that person a genius. Do you know who's being called geniuses these days? They're not geniuses. I won't name names, or maybe I will. We'll see how this goes. But think of some of the famous people, or some of the very popular people at least, who've been called geniuses in the last few years, and then double check yourself and see, are these people really geniuses? And are they really good people? I think not in many cases. I'll let you figure out who I'm talking about, but there's a few of them.
Is you know Ross, he's the best, and he does this amazing gig, and we were having a drink afterwards, and
Yeah,
there's a
he's
really
just
nice
teasing
vibe
here.
in the bar. But I noticed this dude who slightly uncomfortably was hovering sort of on the periphery of our group, and I noticed in particular this tall, really handsome guy had those nice dreadlocks that you can get for about 600 quid at the hairdresser, and he had a shirt open to about here, and it's very tanned. But I noticed him particularly because he had a long silver chain, and hanging on the end of the chain, a quite prominent silver cross. You know, the sort of cross you might wear if you're a fan of intersections. Or the lowercase letter T. Or probably most commonly if you're a fan of the apparatus by which first century Romans put to death and tortured Jewish insurgents. And anyway, he was sort of standing there.
Okay, so spitting out some fact there. A joke about intersections and lowercase t. Obviously talking about, I'm assuming, the Christian cross with, well, it is the Christian cross because of what he said afterwards, but, representing the crucifixion. And yes, so obviously he's still mocking.
And eventually he made the move and he came over. It's lovely, polite guy. He said, "Hi, g'day, I'm Sam." His name was Sam. He said, "I'm from Dandenong." He was from Dandenong, which is the suburb of Dandenong, set in the Dandenong Ranges, just to the southeast of Melbourne. And we got talking, but I could tell he wanted to talk to me, and eventually he managed to kind of, isolate me from the pack. And he said, "Tim, I've always wanted to talk to you because I'm a fan of your work, and I don't want you to think I'm offended or anything, but as you might have noticed, I'm a Christian. And he said, I've always wanted to ask you why you don't believe in God." And I said, "Well, Sam, I don't believe in God for the same reason that anyone that doesn't believe in a thing doesn't believe in it, because I haven't yet been offered enough evidence to allay my doubts." And he said, "But you don't just go through your whole life only believing things for which you have evidence." And I said, "Yeah." Well, that's pretty much how I stutter my way through my turgid existence, yeah. And he said, "What about love?" And I said, "Well, what about love, Sam?" And he said, "Do you believe in love?" And I said, "Yeah, I believe in love. I think I love. I am loved. Sure." And he said, "Aha! You don't have any evidence for love." And I said, I think, yeah, I've got evidence. Sure, love without evidence is stalking.
I like that.
And he said, "Well, Tim, if it's evidence you want, how about this?" And he told me this story, this incredible story about his mum. You see, Sam and his mother were members of a big evangelical church congregation in the Dandenongs, one of those new glassy type ones. And in her early 60s, Sam's mum had gone to the doctor with a problem with her eye, and he had diagnosed an irreversible degenerative eye disorder. And he told her that if she didn't get surgery very quickly, that she would lose her eyesight. And Sam's mum was afraid. She didn't believe in modern medicine. She didn't trust doctors. She was afraid of hospitals and the idea of surgery. But Sam and his mum went to this church, this incredible church. And that Sunday, the entire congregation of their church, some 1,700 people, prayed at the same time for Sam's mum. And the following Tuesday, they went back to the doctor, and there was no sign that there'd ever been anything wrong with her eyes. She was healed. She was cured. And the reason this story had an impact on me is because I try to be intellectually honest with others and with myself, and all I've ever asked for is evidence. And here I was witnessing a first-person account of what can only be described as a miracle. So I went home.
First-person account of what could only be described as a miracle. Yes, yeah. Be very very cautious of first-person accounts of anything. That's not evidence. That's not fact. But he's sitting at the piano now, so I wondered, because there's a whole orchestra here, but obviously this is part of a whole show. So I wasn't sure if maybe this segment was going to be a comedic segment, just talking, but it looks like we're entering into some music now. So let's see what Tim has for us here.
And I wrote this song. I have an apology to make. I'm afraid I've made a big mistake. I turned my face away from you, Lord. I was too blind to see the light. I was too meek to feel your might. I closed my eyes, I couldn't see the truth, Lord. But then, like Saul on the Damascus road, you sent a messenger to me, and so now I've had the truth revealed to me. Please forgive me all those things I said. I'll no longer betray you, Lord. I will pray to you instead, and I will say thank you, thank you, thank you, God, thank you.
Yeah, so far it sounds like a sincere apology. We only know a little bit from the comedic part ahead of time that there was already some mocking going on, so my guess is that that will continue. But at the moment, it's a beautiful song that sounds like an apology, doesn't it?
Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mum. I had no idea, but it's suddenly so clear. Now I feel such a cynic. How could I have been so dumb? Thank you for displaying how praying works. A particular prayer in a particular church. Thank you, Sam, for the chance to acknowledge this omnipotent ophthalmologist. Thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mum. I didn't realize that it was so simple, but you've shown a great example of just how it can be done. You only need to pray in a particular spot to a particular version of a particular God. And if you pull that off without a hitch, he will fix one eye of one middle-class white bitch. I know in the past my outlook has been limited. I couldn't see examples of where life had been definitive, but I can admit it when the evidence is clear as Sam's mom's new cornea. And that's extremely clear.
Okay.
Thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mum. I have to admit that in the past I have been skeptical, but Sam described this miracle and I am overcome. How fitting that the sighting of a sight-based intervention.
To stop for a second, the music is very jaunty, isn't it? It's really well done. A whole orchestra backing him up here. It's amazing, and his voice is good too, isn't it?
Clear as Sam's mom's.
Some comedians who do this are good, and they're funny and entertaining, but the voice is not as good as Tim's, I don't think.
Cornea, and that's extremely clear. Thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mum. I have to admit that in the past I have been skeptical, but Sam described this miracle and I am overcome. How fitting that the sighting of a sight-based intervention should open my eyes to this exciting new dimension. It's like someone put an eye chart up in front of me and the top 5 letters say ICGOD. Thank you, Sam, for showing how my point of view has been so flawed. I assumed there was no God at all, but now I see that cynical. It's simply that his interests aren't particularly broad. He's largely undiverted by the starving masses, or the inequality between the various classes. He gives out strictly limited passes, redeemable for surgery or 2-for-1 glasses. I feel so shocking for historically mock.
Yeah, it's a big question for those who don't believe, and even for those who do believe. Why um, would a God allow such horrendous things to happen? And to people who do have faith and to people who do pray to Him, and countries even, where it was primarily Christian or Catholic, but there always seems to be some kind of dodge provided. He works in mysterious ways, or they weren't praying the right way, or they weren't using the correct version of the correct Bible. Yeah, very, very questionable.
Your interests are clearly confined to the ocular. I bet given the chance, you'd eschew the divine and start a little business selling contacts online. Fuck me, Sam, what are the odds that of history's endless parade of gods, that the God you just happen to be taught to believe in is the actual God, and he digs on healing, but not the AIDS-ridden African nations, nor the victims of the plague, nor the flood-addled Asians, but healthy, privately insured Australians with common incurable lens degeneration. The story of Sam's is but a single explanation, a surgical God who digs on magic operations. No, it couldn't be mistaken, attribution of causation, born of a coincidental temporal correlation, exacerbated by a general lack of education, vis-a-vis physics in Sam's parish congregation. It couldn't be that all these pious people are liars. It couldn't be an artifact of confirmation bias, a product of groupthink, a mass delusion, an emperor's new clothes style, fear of exclusion. No, it's more likely to be an all-powerful magician than the misdiagnosis of the initial condition, or one of many cases of spontaneous remission, or a record-keeping glitch by the local physician. No, the only explanation for Sam's mum's scene, they prayed to an all-knowing super being, to the omnipresent.
Yeah, he gave a lot of facts there, a lot of explanations for how this could happen, that you were diagnosed and then was it the next week or something, um, everything seemed to be better. This happens all the time. Misdiagnosis happens all the time. Mistakes happen all the time. And sometimes spontaneous remission happens. It doesn't mean that it's gone. It doesn't mean that it won't come back either. Um, Sometimes with cataracts or other issues, other health issues as well. I've had them myself sometimes, not cataracts, but other things. Sometimes they just get better, at least for a while, or they seem better because you get used to it. And you sort of adjust, and then it seems like, yeah, I think I'm better. And then maybe weeks or months down the road, you realize it really wasn't better. I kind of got used to it, and now it's getting worse. So all kinds of things, very natural explanations can be given for these, just like a lot of other things with ghosts and spirits and poltergeists and all these beliefs and mythologies. There are some very natural, reasonable explanations that can be provided, but if you're really completely entrenched in this faith or this belief, it's very, very difficult for you to see outside of it. And you so much want to believe that someone has helped this one person, let millions die of starvation, children, babies, everything else, but help this one person who has insurance and could go get their eyes fixed relatively easily, actually. Um, yeah, you just want to believe. But he's doing this in such a humorous way, and he's very good on the piano and very musical, and of course, the whole orchestra going on. So, what an entertaining way to spit out some facts and some reality checks.
Illusion. No, it's more likely to be an all-powerful magician than the misdiagnosis of the initial condition, or one of many cases of spontaneous remission, or a record-keeping glitch by the local physician. No, the only explanation for Sam's mum's scene: they prayed to an all-knowing super being, to the omnipresent master of the universe, and he liked the sound of their muttered verse. So for a bit of a change from his usual stunt of being a sexist, racist, murderous cunt, he popped down to Dandenong, and just like that, used his powers to heal the cataracts of Sam's mom. Of Sam's mom. Oh, thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mom. I didn't realize that it was such a simple thing. I feel such a dingling, what ignorant scum. Now I understand how prayer can work. A particular prayer in a particular church, in a particular style, with a particular stuff, and for particular problems that are particularly tough, and for particular people, preferably white, and for particular senses, preferably sight. A particular prayer in a particular spot, to a particular version of a particular God, and if you get that right.
Yeah, particular. You see how tiny this window is when there are literally thousands of gods and beliefs in the world, in the past and today, even presently. Um, and you just got the right one in the right church with the right priest or minister with everything had to be just perfect to clear up a cataract.
He just might take a break from giving babies malaria and pop down to your local area to fix the cataracts of your mom.
Wow. I'm going to stop there so the ads don't pop up because they always catch me off guard. And with the software program I'm using, it's difficult to just get them out. That was excellent. That was really fun. Whether you agree with the message or not, it was still fun. He's very humorous. He's a good comedian. The intro dialogue was both hilarious, but also said some facts and at the very least should make people think about what's happening here. And then musically, it was excellent, of course, with the orchestra with his own voice, and his piano playing is really excellent. Um, I know someone mentioned a song that really shows off his piano playing, so we'll do a reaction to that later. But the message here is very important too. I think use your reason, use some rationality, um, and try to think about what you believe and what you're saying. I'm not going to go on a rant. I could. I have done, not in a reaction video, but certainly in my life occasionally. But I won't do that here. I think people know my views a little bit, and I think it's important to think. Use your own brain and logic and work some of these things out for yourself. And I hope we can all do that in the future. But in the meantime, I think Tim Minchin is hilarious and very musical as well, and a character on top of it. So I really love this. Thank you, God. Yeah, he was mocking a bit here. Actually, I'm not even sure I'd call that mocking. It was straightforward critique, I think. But nevertheless, it was fun. Let me know what you think. Let me know what other to mention you'd like to hear, or what other bands or musicians too. In the meantime, it's Ron from RJJ's Reactions. Keep listening, keep having fun. Bye bye for now.